After 2 weeks of waiting, it feels like Suns fans may have to wait just a little bit longer. Kevin Durant reportedly not making his debut on Friday. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, we'll talk about when he could be back, what the benefits of holding him out are, and much more. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen. The NBA is back here on this Thursday, so welcome to a great day. Hit follow or subscribe. We're on every single podcast platform out there, including YouTube. Wherever you're finding us, you can get us in your feed every single Monday through Friday. If you hit follow, hit subscribe. If you are on YouTube, hit the bell down below, get a notification when a new show goes up, and drop a comment with any thoughts you have about the Kevin Durant experience here in Phoenix, which may be on hold for just a bit longer. Joining us today, as he does every week, is Aaron Edwards to talk through the latest Suns news. Aaron, let's start with the delay in Durant's debut, which came down just before we hit record here. I want to let everybody know first, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. So it was Brian Windhorst, Aaron. It was Flex. We'll put those in the same sentence, I suppose. And then Brian Windhorst, who all kind of put the word out there that Durant might not play Friday, and he might not even play Sunday. He might play. His debut might come on the road in Charlotte, which just I know it doesn't matter, but it would be kind of a letdown to see him miss a game against his old team at home, a big finals rematch from 2 years ago in Milwaukee on ABC, and then make his debut against probably the worst team in the NBA. That just would be a little bit of a downer. I know it probably is insignificant, but that was my reaction.
Yeah, I was listening to Windhorst this morning with Spears, and they even said Durant hasn't run 5-on-5. He hasn't run any scrimmaging, so it was kind of looking like that. I was hopeful that he might play Friday, but once you hear that he's just kind of still just doing shoot around and his own workouts and stuff, it kind of made sense that he's not going to go from just shooting around by himself to an NBA game against Dallas and Milwaukee, fresh off of that, even though Giannis probably isn't playing.
Yeah, Giannis might not play either, which could make that game pretty awful, but we'll see. The other part of this that I feel bad about, that is a bummer, is first of all, shout out to Kenny, who I met at Fry's, who listens to the show. I hope you're listening. He told me he bought tickets for that Friday game, and I know a lot of people did, and those tickets were not cheap. I hope that there were some people out there like you, Aaron, who heard it on the podcast first or read the tea leaves that were out there and sold them before it really went viral this afternoon that he wasn't gonna play on Friday. Because man, those tickets were double what it normally costs to get in that building, and it might just be Book versus Shea, which is not nothing, but I'm definitely not doubling my my payment for that.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly confident when they asked him during his press conference either.
True.
You probably should have just taken it from that. He wasn't yeah, everybody come out. We're hooping on Friday. I can't wait. He wasn't like that. He was we'll see. Maybe, maybe not. And I think with a dude that likes hooping that much, if he really was that close to playing, he would have been bring the whole city out. Let's be loud Friday. Let's do this. And he wasn't like that.
It's true. He probably would have done that. And I guess it brings us to the real conversation point that probably does matter. Cause again, they could beat the Thunder without him. They could even, especially if Giannis doesn't play, beat the Bucks without him. They probably would beat the Hornets whether he plays or not. So it's not it's a wins and losses thing so much, but we haven't really talked about this, although I feel I've done a ton on it on the podcast. But just how worried are you? Because if that happens, you're down to, I think it would be 20 games left in the season if he were to play in Charlotte. and 22 already felt like not a lot of time. So how worried would you be if the games start to tick by and it's less and less time for them to gel down the stretch?
I think just the games that everybody has like mesh. I do think they do need that time, but I think the games are going to mesh well. I think KD is going to figure it out before Book does. He's played with other stars. He knows how to do the back and forth thing. And so he knows how to just do that in general. Book has never played with another dude that can drop 40. I mean, unless you count Bridges, but he did that after he left. And so, like, I don't think that, like, Book is going to be used to just letting KD cook sometimes. Like, he's let CP cook sometimes, but CP kind of just waits it out, and he still waits for his time. There's going to be times when Book's just going to have to watch this dude, like, just go off. And I think it's going to be harder for him to do that than KD. KD's watched Kyrie drop 40. He's watched Steph drop 50. Like, he can watch other players just get down and do their thing. But Book hasn't had to do that before. So I think that's probably why I would like them to get together a little bit faster to finally, like, to find that mesh. Because, yeah, it's probably going to be a change for Book, even though he was in the Olympics, so he kind of, like, knows how this can go. But I still, like, think
that's true.
Game time wise, I think it's just going to be a little bit harder for Book to, like, just find the timing. And when do I let KD go off? When is it time for me to, like, hop in and, like, get some, and or Chris Paul or Ayton? I think that's probably the harder part. I think KD's going to fit right in, though.
That's a good way to put it. As far as just stacking things up, I mean, the Olympics are kind of weird to pull from, because it's like,
it's weird basketball. It's different.
Weird basketball. The competition is so much worse, where it's like, as long as the U.S. doesn't just, like, make a mess of itself, they should win. It's more just like, can everybody fit and settle down and just, like, get the job done? That's kind of the adjustments that are necessary. This is like adjusting up, right? It's like, no, we have to, like, get better. And that's a little different. So I think that might be what it is, and we'll see. I do think more time for Book to work his way up. People might forget, like, guy was on a minutes limit heading into the All-Star break. This time away should help him, but I guess that's a silver lining a little bit too, is, like, maybe by the time Durant does come back, Book will be fully, like, physically ready to go. That could be a benefit. But by the way, I haven't even hit on this, but did you think Bridges was going to score like that so quickly after leaving Phoenix? What the hell happened? Guys like Kevin Durant basically out there.
Yeah, it was a wild 42. Like, I only got to watch the highlights, but I ended up just going back and watching the game. And it was like the most Mikal Bridges 40. He was just doing all the stuff he does, but jacking shots up, like, more and getting to the line. And it was just, you can see, like, a little bit of that when he was on the Suns. But especially the game before, the Knicks game, he played terrible. I watched that entire game, and he was just letting Dinwiddie just jack up shots, and he was just doing the sit in the corner and let the other dude go off kind of thing. But no, he took over, and I think it's just going to be really fun watching him grow over there.
Yeah. How do you feel about the Suns fans who are already everywhere in my mentions and on the YouTube comments talking about him coming in 2026? You buying that? Is he about to be a Sun again here in 3 years?
If he ends up making the All-Star jump somewhere else, he's going to be somewhere else forever. Like, I don't think you take the step back to being a third or fourth option after you end up having your own team.
I would say anybody who's feeling that way, just buy a Nets jersey rather than waiting for the Suns thing to happen again. Because, the part of it that interested me the most was the 7 free throws. That's not a ton, but it did feel like he was kind of getting downhill. But that is a Brooklyn analysis situation at this point.
Our bad, guys.
That, I guess. But,
that's my bad.
Right. But no, I think the last thing on this that I will say that I haven't maybe hit on yet is from a standing standpoint with this KD thing. And I don't expect it to, like, linger, but I guess what this says to me, Aaron, is, like, they might be taking things a little bit more patiently even than we might have thought from a KD standpoint. Cause I kind of felt like, yes, they want to make sure he's all right, but they also need to, like, get this thing going. Maybe this means that they might be more willing to, like, rest him for games here and there, or rest other guys, even if they're prioritizing health. And I guess with that said, the two teams ahead of them, it's kind of funny. The Clippers and the Kings actually both have more difficult schedules left than the Suns do. One of the things within that, though, is the Kings have 25 games left, whereas the Suns only have 22 and the Clippers only have 21. So those extra games for Sacramento could be good or bad. You don't really know. And then Dallas has the easiest schedule in the NBA down the stretch of this season. So just in terms of kind of keeping an eye on those standings, that might come into play. But we have another thing to talk about here related to Kevin Durant, which is kind of the war of words he got into, not the first one, with Charles Barkley over at All-Star Weekend about trade demands and this and that. Barkley predicting a lockout, which I don't fully support that. But the nuts and bolts of the trade stuff, I do think is getting a lot of discussion. And Durant is in that mix now. For better or worse, he has finally demanded a trade in the NBA, and I guess he gets lumped in there as well with that. So we'll talk about whether this is good or bad. I have some Suns-sided thoughts with it too. We'll get into all that next. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and there's no better way to spend it than on FanDuel. The perfect time to download the app. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back in your pocket if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. When you get there, you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers to threes drained. I went ahead and looked up NBA MVP odds, which are very, very tilted toward Nikola Jokic right now. I think he'll probably win it. He's clearly the front runner, but minus 240 for him. And then the next closest guy is Embiid at plus 600. Like, just put money on anybody and you're bound to feel pretty good about the value. You also have sixth man of the year, which feels pretty wide open. Brogdon is the favorite, but I think Norm Powell at plus 410 is a pretty nice one. So they have awards odds, they have finals odds, all of that, plus the game-to-game stuff over at the FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout, the same game parlay. And don't forget, don't miss your chance for that no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. You can also put locked on in when you sign up. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, so Aaron, this Durant and Barkley don't like each other. I think that's fair to say, right? This is not like breaking news that they might have gotten into it or said some things to each other. I don't think Durant likes him or Shaq at this point, which is fair when the most famous NBA voices just trash you every chance they get. I probably wouldn't like them much myself, but setting that aside, I think the interesting thing about this, Durant said that trade requests are not bad for the league and that it generates more attention and interest around the league. And then Barkley had the quote that kind of went viral, which was, "You can't take my money and say you want to divorce me in 6 months to a year. There's no doubt in my mind these guys are going to get locked out." I don't think they're going to get locked out. It doesn't seem like anyone thinks that. But I don't know if Chuck knows necessarily how marriages go, because I think you actually do get divorced after 6 months all the time. Like, did he watch White Lotus season 2? You can definitely get the money of the people that you want to get the money from. What did you make of all of it, though? How did you take it?
I think Chuck is just kind of being petty at this point, but I think at the same time, Kevin is egging him on. Like, he could ignore Chuck. Like, he could easily just shrug him off as this old man. But I think Kevin, like, kind of likes it. I think he likes the beef with Chuck. I think he likes messing with him. I think it's kind of just like this millennial boomer thing that KD kind of just does stuff knowing that it's going to make Chuck mad. And I think they're just going to do this forever. It's really funny to me because Chuck really kind of doesn't have any legs to stand on with a lot of the stuff that he gets mad at KD about. And KD doesn't call him out on it because I think he just likes how long this keeps going. Like, they're just going to do it forever.
Yeah, people were throwing out there the articles from like 93 and then again when he left Phoenix and went to Houston in like 96 or 7, whatever that was. And the way that he approached that situation, which I will just go ahead and tell everybody who missed it, was almost exactly like every superstar, Durant and anyone else, that you just get fed up and then you tell the team to trade you and then you get traded. It's not exactly as new of a phenomenon on the trade side as we might think it is. I understand it's different because of the years left on the contract and this and that. I understand that's kind of what Chuck is probably getting at in terms of Durant asking for a trade last summer before his extension ever even kicked in. But I don't think it's that big of a deal. It is kind of funny. My question for you on this note, though, is How would Charles Barkley respond if the Suns won a championship this year? I think he's going to be a little bit torn because he does tend to be a Suns homer in his heart of hearts, but he has to kind of keep this Durant thing going. Or do you think he looks at it as Durant finally doing it himself, quote unquote, and he actually gives them credit?
I think he'll go homer on this and just be happy for Durant and try to squash it. But KD doesn't seem like that type of person. Like, he's going to remember all the stuff that Chuck did, and he's still going to be sarcastic about all the stuff that Chuck said, even if they do kind of become friends or whatever. I think that, yeah, they'll just always kind of just take shots at each other. Like, KD, he's not really taking shots at Chuck. He'll just kind of be sarcastic. He'll just be like, all right, Charles, or how he calls Shaq Shaquille on Twitter all the time, just like to get on him. I think he'll just always do stuff like that because he knows those guys. They're really just still mad over the Warriors thing. Like, they can act like they're not, but
they're mad because they were wrong. I think that's really it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they just got it wrong and they don't want it to be true.
Yeah, they wanted it to blow up, and it didn't. And it was everything that everybody knew was going to happen. Like, he got the 2 rings. Like, yes, he got hurt, and they almost won 3 in a row, but they wanted it to fail, and it didn't. So now it's just kind of just this long-standing petty thing that they're just going to keep doing forever and ever because they don't like the choice that he made.
Setting aside that, like, it almost is like silly to even engage with it, right? Because Shaq won a title on his second team or third team. He won his first titles on his second team, and then he won another title on his third team. Then Charles didn't make it to the finals until he got to his second team, and then also went to a third team to chase a ring. I'm not sure what the distinction that they're making in their heads is, to be completely honest with you. I guess that they bullied out all their teammates and they were the number 1 top dog, and that's what they want everybody to do. I'm not sure, but I do think that there's something within this, though, that's kind of interesting. And I'm sure you read or heard the Durant comments at his press conference about kind of how he looks at Brooklyn and just like how he kind of thinks about the goals and what he aspires to do in Phoenix and this and that. And like, it's been a longstanding thing with him, right? I don't think it's a secret that Durant kind of got to that podium in Golden State and it was like, oh, this is it. Like, I don't feel different, and a lot of people have had that. It's definitely not a sports thing. And I think he's kind of had to make peace with like, okay, what do I want out of the game then? If it's not just about, let me go find the best place for myself to win a ring. But what do you think, like, just putting yourself in his head, what do you think KD thinks of kind of the task at hand? Obviously he wants to win a championship, but when you hear what he kind of says about, I just like the grind. I want to be here and be part of this group and learn and get better and all that stuff versus the obvious pressure that everybody's kind of putting on them. What do you think he views this season as himself?
I think this, like, he likes hooping so much. For me, it seems like this is going to be the first time where he's just with hoopers with no side stuff. Like, Book's not really, he was dating a Jenner, but he wasn't really like in the tabloids or papers or anything. He was just always in pictures. Chris Paul, he's just in commercials, but he still just hoops. Ayton, like, he's young and he just plays video games, but he just hoops. Like, it's not going to be the TMZ kind of basketball stuff that he's done with. The first year from the Warriors, it was just everybody was mad at him. He won and he realized like that wasn't fun. And then the second year, it was like, oh my God, like everybody was just like, is he staying? Is he going? They won again. And then that entire third year, it was like, is he staying? Is he going? It was drama, him and Draymond. And then with the whole Kyrie thing and Harden, like, they get attached to hoops in not basketball terms a lot. And Ben Simmons coming in and him just being that, like, I think just when it comes to how much he loves basketball, it seems like this is going to be the first time in what, like 5-6 years where it's just hoopers around with no TMZ, other Bleacher Report, just first take kind of stuff attached to the team. Like, yeah, we have the early Ayton and Monty thing, and of course Sarver, but everything else, it's just basketball. People hated us because we came up really fast and we kind of talked a lot more trash than they probably would have liked. But other than that, like, this is just going to be kind of like one of the most simplest basketball driven teams he's been on in years. And I think that's what he meant, just not having all the other stuff attached to it.
And he has 3 years left on his deal, right? So I think that part of it will kind of be, unless he chooses to make it something, it won't be, and at least for this year and next year and probably the year after that too. So I think that is a good way to look at it. I do think he has to care. But I also think you get to a point in your career where you kind of know what to say to deflect from you know what to say to not get asked about it again, right? And it's like, okay, I'll be honest, but I'm also going to frame things in a way where it's like, you're not going to have to check up on me every single day about, okay, are you feeling like you're going to win the championship you told us you were going to win? Like, he's smart enough to avoid that. The last angle on this, because I do think, obviously Barkley being related and that being kind of the closest the Suns ever got to a championship, probably. I mean, depending on which one, it's all been the same series in
somebody going God mode.
Different decades. Yeah, exactly. But this kind of brings me back and not to dwell on the Bridges part of it specifically, because it's really not just about that, but like, I think we're in agreement that Suns fans, because it's never happened here, that's kind of the thing that pushes the sentimentality off to the side a little bit. And it's just like, you got to get a championship, and the Valley will cherish this team regardless of who's on it. Could be Terrence Ross taking the final shot. It does not matter. Get the title, and then people will care about the next thing the next time. But do you think that it cheapens anything about the fan experience to have it happen this way? Like, put it in perspective of, like, if the Suns had, let's say they won the finals in 2021, but then they still end up doing this KD trade because Chris gets old and maybe Mikal still isn't developing quickly enough and Ayton has his questions. And then let's say like everything else happens the same way. They lose to Dallas. They end up having a rough season this year and they trade for KD now. How would you think people would feel? Because I do think that part does get a little lost. Like, you can't take away the fact of Dirk winning, Steph winning, even like Kyle Lowry in 2019 when you have all that history. That matters. I think it does still matter.
Yeah, I think that since people already kind of don't consider Book a superstar, what are they going to consider him less of not a superstar if he wins one with KD? Like, no, he wants a ring, and then he'll think about the other stuff later. He got to his second max, and he was all NBA. Like, I think just the ring is it's the way that he's driven. I think it's just the ring. Yeah. I don't think anybody else is going to be like, oh, KD did it. I know for a fact Chris Paul won't care. Like,
true. That okay, but what about from a fan standpoint? That's part of what I'm getting at here too. Of like, is it just a matter of it's never happened, so people aren't going to be picky about how it is, and I'm just in my head about it?
Yes, those hats are going to sell out. The shirts are going to sell out. The parade is going to be crime, and nobody's going to care about any of that.
Yeah. All right, that's fine. I guess that hypothetical is probably a little too complicated to really put yourself into and how it would feel. But I wonder like if they do the trade, if they win it in 2021, I wonder how it feels. I wonder if fans feel even differently more about the Cam and Mikal part of it going out. It's crazy. It's just funny to me sometimes, like how results oriented things can be. And it's not wrong. I would be exactly the same way. Like, I don't feel if I do a podcast that I think is awesome, but 800 people listen, I'm like, damn, nobody listened to that. That sucked. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I get it, but it's funny how like Giannis goes crazy and somehow that creates this ripple effect where we feel super different about the team. And now Durant's here and everything else. It is kind of crazy. And maybe it's just been too long of not seeing this guy play. And I'm just thinking way too much about it. But let's get to another Suns legend, another couple of Suns legends, as well as an outgoing, disgraced non-legend next here. A report from John Gambadoro about the Ring of Honor plans and all these great things Robert Sarver was just about to do before he got suspended for being a bigot. We'll talk about that next. First, one more quick break. Okay, so John Gambadoro at like 10:30 this morning on Wednesday, Aaron put out a tweet about wondering if Matt Ishbia will follow up on some plans Robert Sarver had before he was suspended, including a year-long effort to honor Jerry Colangelo. Colangelo Hall was going to be the name of that cool new pavilion with the bar and the nice escalators and the big screens in the entryway of Footprint Center. And then they were also going to put the Ring of Honor display front and center in that area with two new names, reportedly Amari Stoudemire and Shawn Marion. Seems like a no-brainer. So I guess we're probably in agreement there, Aaron. I more laugh at the it's also the same day, mind you, that the official press release went out about the $5 million that Sarver gave to the charity organization. And then I believe it might have been the day that the paychecks hit with that $20K for the full-timers. So why does Robert Sarver care so much about looking good still? Is his $2 billion not enough for him, or he has to have everybody like him also?
I think he wants everybody to like him. And I think whether it happens or not, if we win a championship, I think he still wants to be a part of this. And I think he still wants to kind of take some credit for it. So he's just slowly like staying around and like peeking his head across the wall and just been like, I'm still here. Like, you guys are looking good, but I'm still here. And if you guys pull this off, I am still here. Remember that thing I did? And that's really what I think is driving him, is just wanting to be a part of it, even though we don't want him to be at all.
Well, we did see that with Ryan McDonough, right? Suns make the finals, and he's like, hey, I don't know if you remember, but I drafted those guys. So I'm still here if anyone wants to do an interview. And people did want to do an interview. I think one thing that jumped out to me is like, I thought Sarver's suspension would have still been in place. And I think it is. So I guess we just are like, okay, so he had a representative talk to the Suns, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But in terms of like being around, I don't think he's allowed to. And so like, even if he wanted to buy a ticket to the games, it's kind of hilarious that he couldn't come. That makes me feel pretty happy. Do you think Shawn Marion actually was game for this? Or is this the kind of thing where they're like, we would have wanted to do that, but we never actually reached out to Marion, and now we get to say we wanted to do it and no one can tell us no?
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he sees Suns on his like caller ID thing and just been like, no, I'm not answering that. I don't think he answers any phone calls from Sarver. I would be shocked if Amari did too. Like, he told Amari to his face that he could get anybody like him somewhere else. So yeah, I just think to try to bring back the two dudes that probably hate you the most was always just a weird sell, and that was never going to happen.
I don't think Marion answers any 480 or 602 calls, period. He might not even answer Tucson. I'm not too sure. On the side of Stoudemire, he also didn't sign him at the end, remember? And Stoudemire came back and told every 2016-17 range that he wanted to be here, and it was just going to be a minimum thing, and they couldn't even find a roster spot for him while they tanked their way to the bottom, that is pretty frustrating. I know Stoudemire has some legal stuff going on now that maybe complicates if they would actually want to go through with this. But at that time, before this season, which is what Gambo's telling us, I wonder if they actually were game for it or not. I do think, though, that this Ring of Honor setup in this picture, which I should have uploaded to StreamYard to put up on the screen, but I did not. People can check it out on Gambo's Twitter, is pretty cool. And I think that would be a cool way to do it, because if you've been to Footprint Center since the renovations, it's very, very low key. Like, you almost don't even notice there's a Ring of Honor anymore at all. And you could tell it was kind of incomplete. So that I do buy. I do think they're going to do something more legit. This still just feels like a no-brainer that it might not be exactly like this. And I don't know if we should be honoring Jerry Colangelo, in my personal opinion. But Ishbia should do something like this for sure. Like, this is just, come on. Like, you want the fans to like you more? Do this. They'll like you more.
Yeah, I think getting some of like the most beloved players that we've ever had back in the building after they literally refuse to ever come back is kind of just a kind of a layup, especially as a new owner who players like he's respected by other college coaches. I think that if anybody can do it, Ishbia can. And James Jones, obviously. We
are ticking closer to Kevin Durant's return, although the prospect of doing like 4 more shows between now and his debut, I hope you guys are along for the ride with me. We'll see what happens. That'll wrap us up. Hit follow, hit subscribe wherever you're finding the show. We're on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. We're free. Keep us free by listening. In the meantime, go make Locked On NBA your second listen here on this Thursday to catch up on everything else going on around the league. The Mavs, there's games tonight, all that good stuff. That show's available everywhere as well. And I'll talk to you all tomorrow.